Hey guys, it's Saru, and I think one of the most anticipated games here in the West in terms of Asian MMORPGs is the upcoming Unreal Engine 4 MMO called Jade Dynasty World. I had a quick look at the game as it entered its alpha or I guess beta phase today in China, and though I had quite a few issues that unfortunately didn't let me record past a certain point, I was able to gather some information for you guys, so I figured I'd talk to you guys about it and just see if this is something that maybe everyone's interested in. So, let's get right into it. So, Jade Dynasty World is a direct sequel from the previous MMORPG called Jade Dynasty. It's being published by Perfect World Entertainment. Yes, I know. Still, not many MMORPGs are even in Unreal Engine 4 to begin with, and when the game was first shown off, there were talks of it being a mobile MMORPG and it having cross-platform and stuff like that. Of course, this was confusing because at that same time, the same publisher was releasing a mobile MMORPG as well called Jade Dynasty New Fantasy. Still, after checking it out, the game really did look beautiful. But first, let's get into the spec side of things. I feel like this is something that's not really covered when you watch like a first impressions kind of video kind of thing. I know that when I watch a video on a game that I'm really interested in, I've never really seen somebody talk about the spec requirement for some strange reason, but I felt it necessary to kind of talk about it here because it is actually a really bizarre requirement, so let's talk about it. The minimum requirement is a GTX 1060 6GB graphics card with an i7-7700. Alright, 12 gigs of RAM, 120 gigabytes of hard drive space, and a Windows 10 64-bit OS. And as for the recommended, which obviously this is what we're all trying to aim for, right? It is recommended to have an RTX 2070 8GB graphics card with an i7 8700K CPU, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and 120 gigabytes of hard drive space on an SSD. That's definitely a hefty ask, and luckily I can hit that, but still, I don't think a lot of people can, especially with the shortage these days. But graphically, the game reminded me already of either Swords of Legends Online, Swordsman, if I kind of had like a better imagination of how it actually looked like, because back then it did not look very well. Or the most recent Sword and Fairy game, just aesthetically. I mean, the UI seemed a little mobile-esque and I couldn't really figure out how to kind of change things around, so I didn't really, which scares me. But the game itself has an interesting character creator system. Now, we have a few different classes that players will probably be familiar with in terms of just what it is, I guess, you know, in terms of like, I've played an MMO before and this kind of looks familiar. Let's make up some class names, because quite frankly, this is all in Chinese and I don't speak Chinese and I'm not going to try to butcher any names here. So let's call this fellow the Berserker. It's pretty much an agile class that can fight people like Darth Maul from Star Wars, and it's pretty flashy, though to be perfectly honest, it pretty much all of these classes are flashy because of the Unreal Engine 4 system and all the kind of effects that they're kind of using here. Then we have the, let's call it a spell sword, because that's pretty much what it is. It's a spell sword, using elements to fight enemies and swords and throwing swords at them, flying with a sword, and so on and so forth. And then there's the assassin, which is kind of stealthy and edgy and agile as heck kind of class, but mostly relies on its agility rather than its strength, which again, if you played something like Revelation Online, this kind of feels familiar, right? All these classes kind of feel familiar when you played a lot of Chinese games, I think. And then we have the Lolly class, which I can just assume it's going to be called something like Summoner, because that's usually what they're called, to be perfectly honest. And they can use certain elements. I bet you they can probably heal as well. I couldn't really tell. Again, I don't read Chinese. And lastly, we have a mage-like class, mostly fire. This was kind of interesting and uses kind of like dragon fire. I'd like to go as far as to say that it's a dragon fire mage class. I don't know why, but sounds cool. Character customization was pretty nice, but I wouldn't say it was anything over the top or extensive. You have pretty much some presets, I guess you can call it, and then there are some features that you can use to change your character like pretty much any other game now. If you're trying to compare it to something like Black Desert, you're probably going to be disappointed, and I feel like I say that often when I look at games these days, because I just feel like Black Desert just kind of like set the bar, let's be perfectly honest. And I didn't go as deep as others did, like in this video, for example, from MMOJack, so there was definitely a lot to do with these characters, and you could make them a little unique, but at the end of the day, I feel like it's probably going to rely on cash shop cosmetics. We've seen games, even like Swords of Legends Online, actually, that I just recently mentioned, that you have pretty much a base character that you can create. It's not really unique, and if you really want to make it unique and change hair colors and stuff, you kind of have to go through the cash shop. Now, the game does use the full power of Unreal Engine 4, like I've said. It has ray tracing available, which is really strange in an MMORPG, especially when it's CPU reliant like crazy, but using Unreal Engine 4 usually is a GPU kind of thing, so it might save you guys. I don't know, it might be actually pretty decent. It also has DLSS available. That's using the new DirectX, which is like 3DU, something like that. I don't know, something for ray tracing basically, as well as plugins from NVIDIA for DLSS, so it has that. Still, I can't help but feel like the game needs to be a little polished. I mean, it is in beta or alpha, I guess you can call it, but I'm so used to kind of games being in alpha or something in the West, and then realistically they're not actually, like, they're just fully released, but getting feedback. But with issues that I saw on many Chinese forum boards, I kind of spent all night yesterday just looking at the forum boards. They were having the same issues I was actually, about the game crashing on startup, which I was having that issue. I could not figure it out whatsoever. I would start the game and it would just have the perfect world movie startup and then it would just crash. Lots of Unreal Engine errors and crash logs that even I got myself as well. Although I kind of fixed it by activating game mode on my Windows 11 computer, but I don't know why that would be a thing. So yeah, and a few others that I don't know. I hope that by the time that it does come to the West, it doesn't reflect those issues, because I've seen time and time again that when there are issues raised in a Chinese game, let's say, or a Korean game, whatever, let's say an Asian game basically, when an Asian game has lots of issues and there's a bunch of feedback, there's a bunch of issues, yeah, they fix it over there. But when it comes over here, it's like it starts from scratch and we're still reflecting those same issues, but they don't really listen because it eventually gets patched. So it's really strange that we don't actually get started on a patch that is already fixed. And I've seen that time and time again, even with the most recent patch of Swords and Legends. PvE did look fun. The mechanics were something that I actually noticed was very similar from past experiences in Chinese MMOs like Swordsman Online, Jade Dynasty, Silk Road, just to name a few. I did notice quite a few similarities and actually reminded me a little bit of Revelation Online, which was kind of nice. PvP itself, it had arenas like 3v3 battles such as this. Nothing open world, I don't think. The beta is actually just limited you to get to like level 16 and you can't really go any further. And it's only like a 3-day beta anyway, so plus we only get limited to like 6 hours a day. So it's not much we can do, but I'm trying to get my information. I'm also getting videos from, like I said, from MMO Jack, which I was using his character creation. You can check his channel out somewhere in the description, as well as some other channels that can convey my point a bit more, because like I said, I was having issues recording just because lots of stuff was going on in the game that it was just exploding my computer. I don't know what's happening. Now the game has potential, but a long way to go. And with history from Perfect World ruining cash ups, I do have a fear that the stigma that Chinese MMORPGs have when they come over to the West, with pretty much the idea being like, oh, it's a Chinese MMO, so it's gonna have a pretty bad cash op, I feel like that stigma is still gonna continue. Hopefully not. Because of these stigmas, we've seen hype at the beginning, only to die off after a little bit, and then players just kind of tend to avoid Chinese MMORPGs in general due to past issues with cash shops and greed and just being burned in general. Then once in a while you get a true non-pay-to-win MMO, like Solo for example, but no one really bats an eye because everyone's really been burned by past MMOs of the same genre. I mean, it has its issues, but when it comes to pay-to-win stuff, like, no one really bats an eye anymore. So we're going to see how Jade Dynasty does. I'm gonna have to keep a lookout with my Google Translator in my hand, just scanning the text of the forum boards. But perhaps we'll see if this is a game that I'll get into, and perhaps it'll be something I can cover. I am interested. I love Chinese MMORPGs. I love Asian MMORPGs, to be perfectly honest. I think they bring some sort of flair that we don't really get nowadays. Or to give it like a vague description, I would say like if we have Western MMORPGs, that's more like the Crusaders, or kind of like if anyone's played Chivalry 1 or 2, I feel like that type of like knight stuff, you know, that is like Western stuff. I don't know why, but that's what I envision. Asian MMOs, ever since like Terra, I mean, you have the action combat a lot of the time. Sometimes they don't. With action combat, things are flowy and fluid and it just feels nice. And we don't really get that these days. Even with upcoming MMORPGs like Ashes of Creation, we don't get that. That's really like a hybrid tab target type of thing. And even then, it's not really fluid in terms of combat, because I have played the alpha of Ashes of Creation, so I don't know if that's going to change in the future, but they seem to be going more for the Western kind of like World of Warcraft kind of feel of it. But I don't know. I mean, everyone likes things differently, right? That's just what I like. But are you guys interested in this MMORPG? It is an Unreal Engine 4, which means it's actually much easier to go into consoles and actually even easier to go into mobile. So theoretically, yeah, they could go into the console market if they really wanted to. I'm not lying to you when I say there's actually a button on Unreal Engine 4 or even 5, to be honest, to just like create a console version. I mean, it's unoptimized and obviously you have to work it out, but like there's a button. I know this because like I've been working on my character, like when you're looking at right now in Unreal Engine 5, and I've been reading all the documentation. So I mean, obviously there's more that goes into it than just pressing a button. But anyways, enough of me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and hopefully it was helpful in some way or another. I know not a lot of people are really going to know about this game right now until it kind of gets announced in the West, but yeah, Jade Dynasty World looks kind of fun. All right guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and click that adorable f***ing bell to know when I upload a brand new video. And don't forget to come join my Discord if you want to chat and hang out. Much love, and as always, till next time, friends.